Hello, hello. I'm back in the office. Things are normalizing. Let's let's talk. What else? What should we get into today? Um, okay. First, the reason my wife is still in China is she was diagnosed with a kind of, I guess, thyroid cancer. It's she's got a lump on her throat that they need to remove and probably remove her whole thyroid, if not the majority of it. It is common. It is like 1 in 3 women or something like that, which is just an outrageous figure. The surgery is minimal and simple as cutting someone's throat can be. Um, it is not something that has like extraordinary repercussions, believe it or not. You take a pill, it replaces your thyroid. There's a few months of finding the right amount of medicine you're supposed to take that will emulate your thyroid because everyone's thyroid produces its own kind of quantity of its hormone. So that's like going to be a thing where she's taking medicine to replace her thyroid, and it takes a while to balance the hormone. That's like an individual thing, per individual thing. But aside from that, and a scar, which will fade, relatively rapidly, from what I understand, it's just a matter of making sure it's out before it becomes something else or something worse. Um, it's it's a bummer to be so far away from her, but she's got her parents around, and for me on my end, there's absolutely nothing I can do. The only thing I can do is um, improve and maintain the life we have here until she returns. That's really all I can do. Um, I know she will be fine. She really doesn't like pain. I guess nobody likes pain, but I would say that my wife is particularly distraught by pain. So that's kind of upsetting. I wish there was anything I could do other than simply what I just said, but there isn't. Um, she'll be able to tough it out. She's less, she's tougher than I am, and she's less of probably less of a nervous person than I am when it comes to things like this. Um, Fortunately, it is something that's extremely common, which means the surgeons that do these procedures are extremely good at them. And it's just one of those things that happens. One of my good friends, it happened to them, and she got her thyroid removed too. It's just a thing that happens. So yeah, so my wife will likely be in China for another, if I had to guess, 3 weeks, and that may be that I think it doesn't really matter how long she's. I mean, it does to me. But it doesn't matter in the sense that all I care about is that I kind of. I'm sure we both share the sensation that we just want the surgery to be done with, so we can be past the scary part, right? Um, Aside from that, it's difficult for me to discuss these types of things because I try not to labor over other people's struggles. Um, this isn't happening to me; it's happening to her. I am sharing some degree of the misery in the sense that it's someone it's my partner and I care very much for her. But I don't have to go through any of the troubling stuff she does. So I try to position myself in such a way that I am just helpful as needed. Um, or that's what I would like to do or like to be. Everything's going to be fine in that regard. It's funny. It's been a wacky year. It's been a good year for me, at least relative to the year before. But since she left, it has felt a bit like a tornado. I've been so busy and shit went down with my fucking cat because I'm a fucking idiot. And then this happens. She was like about to leave China, by the way. It was like the week she was leaving when she found this out. So it was like, whoa. Um, it's a part of life, these things, and I'm certainly not being dismissive of it, but there's a very limited amount that I can actually do. So as I said, I just have to be on my game, improve things as they are, do my best to support her in whatever way is necessary, and that's it. That's really all I can say and all I can do, which is okay. Um, I think that the thing that worries me the most is, I wish I could be there for the surgery. I think anyone would feel that way about their, their wife or their husband, that they, during the scary part, they want to be there. But, I can't be. So it is what it is. All I can do is, keep working, keep rolling, keep grooving, keep cruising. That's all I can do. And so, wish her well. She'll be okay. And she'll be back, This will pass as anything else passes. And I'm glad they caught it. They caught it because they screen for stuff like that over there. So it's not like she had, so far as I'm aware, it's not like she had symptoms. You do gradually acquire symptoms related to this, but Cora had yet to have any symptoms, from what I understand. Um, Maybe she did in retrospect, and we just haven't discussed it at length. We haven't had many lengthy conversations about it. Maybe she was having some symptoms that, like, retrospectively, she's going, oh, maybe this was the thyroid and that was the thyroid. I don't really know. But I don't think so. My friend who'd got their thyroid removed had a lot of insane symptoms, extreme migraines, extreme lethargy, weight loss, weight gain, like intense weight loss and weight gain. So they had plenty of symptoms, whereas Coraline didn't have any to that extent. Uh, that's it. That's what's going on. That's like the big thing that's going on in my life aside from everything else. Um, I feel motivated by these types of things. I generally work well in extreme cases when the chips are down, I am at my best. The issue is when things are going smoothly, I do become complacent and lazy, and I sort of turn off. And that's a problem. So in moments like this where there's quite a lot going on, I'm actually generally operating at a significantly higher level. Um, Lately, I have been struggling to maybe adequately express myself, be it in writing or in speech in these videos. And to a large degree, I think it's just because I need there's a lot of writing I haven't been doing that I need to get done, so I feel a little bit almost constipated with thought. There are a lot of things that I need to work out in my own head before I can appropriately articulate them. Um, I've always been of a mind that, and to some extent this is because I am a writer, but I think this is a human thing, and I think I wish it were something that was taught to people. Your thoughts and emotions, your thoughts specifically, and opinions are not meant to live inside of your brain. Your brain is more of like a launching pad. Writing things out is how you come to understand them, and that is universal. Granted, there was a time period where people, the average person couldn't write, so it's certainly not a human necessity, but it is absolutely a human inclination. We all come to the turn. Every civilization came to write, and for good reason, not just for record keeping. I think it's difficult now for me to analyze. There are certain aspects of my immediate past, the past, let's say 4 years. Why not? Just throw out a random number, 4 years. Um, that I wish I could better understand why I made certain decisions I made, or didn't make certain decisions. I need to draw a sort of internal map to understand why it is that I'm so capable of feeling kind of like there's a roiling hot, engine, an inferno inside of me, an incessant, endless roar. But then, at the slightest, thimble of comfort and success, I completely shut down and allow it all to dissipate. And that dissipation leads to like a corruption inside of me. And all of the things that make me who I am become very silent. And I slowly, in that comfort, which is like a false comfort, in that sloth, I become very poisonous and lethargic and cruel to myself, most of all. And in that laziness, you become cruel, of course, to the people that rely on you, right? Indirectly. Um, and I'd love to find a way to balance myself a little bit more. Um, and it's something I'm obviously significantly more aware of now because I'm older and I'm wiser. And it's something I clearly live in extremes. I clearly have lived my entire life in extremes. I don't travel. I leave the country for as long as I can until I have to come home. I don't eat. I gain 80 pounds. I don't diet. I lose 60 pounds in a few months. This measured weight loss I'm doing now is not how I usually do it. So I've always been an extremist. I don't drink a little here and there. I go nuts. Even this past month, I drank, let's say, 6 times for the first time in like 7 months. Just me alone in my house, I drank like 2 bottles of vodka, 2 bottles of Kahlua. I was making espresso martinis. A bottle of Monkey Shoulder, which is like a bourbon, like a shitty bourbon. Um, and it's not like I'm drinking in a state of misery. By the way, I don't do that. I don't drink sad. I drink and I'm like chilling in my house, listening to music, watching TV or watching a movie, writing, reading, watch like that's how I'm doing it. Or I'm with my brother. I'm also not always alone. So it's not a misery drinking, but it also is, because I think that for me, whenever I do anything that isn't exactly what I want or putting me closer to where I want to be, I am secretly miserable. And I've spent a great deal of my life always sort of under the impression that I wanted to move on with the day because it's not where the day was not where I wanted it to be. Um, which is no way to live because, then that's just your life and you die and you never get anywhere. Um, I think I want to convince myself that I've been turned like off, um, and haven't had the capacity to turn myself all the way back on, and that I am like approaching this sensation that I've been reignited, um, and that finally it'll happen. And of course, I'm aware that that's it's a it's not how it works. It's just not. But with a good deal of contemplation, not a neurotic, self-analyzation that leads you to diagnosing yourself with X, Y, and Z. That's actually useless, utterly useless. Um, my advice would be, unless you have, BPD, stray away from cheap terminology and cheap medicine. You can figure things out on your own. I think ultimately, I would like to convince myself that I will not fall back down after years of being, like a puttering engine. Um, but the only way for that to happen is for me to be incredibly cautious and keep good mind on where I'm at and where I'm going. It's difficult for me to express how little I have felt for the past few years. And it's not like I would describe myself as a numb person, but large aspects of my personality and desires and internal and external expectations and promises have been utterly muted, and I couldn't tell you why. Sometimes I wonder if there's like a delayed release to certain things that happened to me maybe 7, 8 years ago, and it's like my brain slowly malformed as a trauma response, which all brains do. Your brain matter shifts and rejumbles when you go through extreme situations, and I wonder if it just took a few years to take. um, but even that would be an excuse. The investigation I want to do isn't to find out so much why, but so much to convince myself that it's something I can get a grasp of. You know, I find generally any sort of internal diving to be exhausting and in a sense wasteful. But when you live just the right amount of time, you can see uh, the fuck, what's the word I'm looking for? you could see the orbit of your own habits and how they go over the span of a year, 5 years, 10 years. And you could see where you are, and you could remember, oh, this time, I always do this after X amount of time. I always behave like this. I always end up doing this. And you could have a grasp on those things when you're very young. But when you're older, you realize, as I've said before in videos, that you can make mistakes and unlearn lessons. And you can go through trials and errors and grow, and then just regress if you're not cautious. I think all of this may sound like vagary, I realize as I'm speaking, but ultimately, it's an aspect of being weary when I am beginning to feel in tune with things. I have a terrible tendency to regress the moment I'm reaching a sense of progress or success. And it's not from fear, although I have done cowardly things before, but it's more so from a sense of I think I think I think that I can be contented with very little sometimes, but only on a surface level. And that contentedness is just a matter of habit. It's not real. It's actually like secretly, privately eating away at me. And it's unfortunate. There are times where I wish I could be a bit more normal and have a bit more normal of a life. But I know myself too well, and I know that if I don't spend my life trying to do the things I want to do desperately or be, I will grow into a bitter, more angry, more manic, more cruel person. That's what I will become. I know myself well enough to know that. So I suppose I'm creating, you suture yourself and form buttresses in your mind against things that lead you down the wrong path over and over and over. And I'm hyper vigilant now that I'm feeling a little good, which isn't to say that before I felt bad, but instead to say that I am quite used to now feeling nothing, which has sort of always been my neutral state. Some of the energy and some of the life is coming back into my fingertips, and it feels very good. It's just a matter of being able to hold it in my hand, you know. Anyway, I don't know if any of this made sense, but it's the type of things going through my mind. I should probably stop the video and start working, writing, doing some stuff. Anyway, all will be well. My wife will be fine, and I will be there for her in whatever way I have to be. And whether or not I have to write some internal fiction of going away and coming back, I choose to believe that I am capable of being reborn whenever I want to be. And I think that the sense that that can happen is important to carry with you, probably until you die. And so, good luck. Change yourself if you must. Be reborn if you must. It's perfectly within your power. It's just a matter of being aware of, the little holes in your brain that you're liable to fall back into. Have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow. It is day 111, 112, I don't know. Ciao.